Today we are talking about quadratic functions and equations. First slide is quadratic graphs and their properties. First, we are trying to find the vertex, the maximum minimum, the axis of symmetry, zeros, and the y-intercept. The vertex is where your number crosses down the x-axis and it's at the very middle right here. The maximum minimum is what is the maximum height of your parabola. Axis of symmetry is the very middle line that goes right down the center of your parabola. Zeros are where it stays on the x-axis, and your y-intercept is where it hits the y-intercept on the y-axis. Next is quadratic functions, where you're trying to find if it's skinny or big, up and down, or side to side, and all that. And we are using -2/5 times x plus 7 squared minus 4. And ours is skinny because we have a -2, which makes it skinny. And then we go left 7, down 4, and ours is happy. Next is solving quadratic equations, and you have to remember to use square root. And so we're using the equation x squared minus 4 equals 0. So right now you can forget about the 0, and you're just pretty much putting a square root over this. And you have your square root x squared equals 4. And then when you come out to that, you do your square root, and you have x equals plus or minus 2. Our next slide is factor to solving quadratic equations. And our equation is x squared plus 11x plus 10 equals 0. And you have to figure out what multiplies to make 10 and what adds to equals 11. So we have 10 and 1, and then we plug it in with our x's. So we have x plus 10 times x plus 1 equals 0. And so you don't want, and then you come down here and you have this, and you have your x plus 10 equals 0 and your x plus 1 equals 0. And you have to remember to set it to 0. And pretty much you're doing the opposite. So you're going to come out with two answers. You're going to come out with x equals -10 and x equals -1. Our final slide is quadratic formula. And so you're using the equation b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And so then we have our equation right here, which is 6x squared plus 8x plus 11 equals 0. And you have to figure out your a, b, and c so you can plug it into the formula. So our a is our 1, which comes from our x. Our b is 8, which of course is right here, and c is 11. And so once you plug that in, you come down here, and you have, so yeah, right, you remember to refer back to this, and you have your 8 plus or minus 8 squared minus 4 times 11, or -4 times 11, my bad, over 1. And so once you do that, you come down here, so you have your almost your final. You have 8 plus or minus 64 minus 44, and that's over 2. Then you have to plug in your a, b, and c with all that. So you have to make sure that's completely correct. And then your final answer is going to be 8 plus or minus 20 squared divided by 2. And this was narrated by Gray and written by Josh.